There once was a man named Gold Roger who was king of the pirates. He had fame, power, and wealth beyond your wildest dreams. Before they hung him from the gallows, these were the final words he said.
Our perspective is yours for the taking, but you'll have to join us first. We left everything we debated at the Yonko table.
Ever since, pirates from all over the world set sail for the Grand Line, searching for the Yonko table, the table that will make their dreams come true.
Yo, folks, welcome to the latest and the greatest from the Yonko table. That is the voice of Grandmaster Hoop coming to you from the lens of a kaleidoscope because, well, we're talking about Kaleidoscope. It is the ambitious new Netflix heist thriller that encourages viewers to randomize the order they watch for a unique viewing experience. And we're here to talk about it. Kaleidoscope dropped on New Year's Day, 8 episodes, 47 minutes each. Very quick, easy watch. But was it worth all the hype surrounded by it? We're here to discuss. I am alone as far as Yonko go. Dr. Jace said he didn't want to invest his time in Kaleidoscope, but with me is Nino Desplazado. Supernova Nino is here because he too joined in on the experience of Kaleidoscope. Nino, Kaleidoscope, why did you invest your time here?
Well, first and foremost, Giancarlo Esposito. I love his work. I love what he does behind the camera. Or is it in front of the camera? It is in front of the camera. I love what he does in front of the camera. I think that he is a great actor, and if it's something that interests me, I'll make sure to watch what he's in. But also, I liked the idea that this was a sort of game that we had to figure out. That this was they called it a puzzle piece, and you look through a kaleidoscope and you see different colors and different aspects, but it's really just a game because you get to experience this in an order of your choosing. I know that there's been a lot of talk about, and I guess we'll get to it later when we talk about how Netflix released this, but the gamification of this was really something that I liked going into.
I can agree with you on both those points. Giancarlo Esposito, I feel, is just one of those actors who often steals the show whenever he's part of something, but has yet to be really in kind of a lead position. Over the past decade, he's gained great acclaim from Breaking Bad, The Boys, Dear White People, The Mandalorian, and now he's here at the forefront. So that was probably the biggest thing that drew me in too. But like you said as well, Netflix really has kind of created this, unique experience as far as it is a game and it is kind of put the pieces together and it's very layered. So, and we can talk about this now. Interestingly enough, I mean, their whole thing is kind of like approach this like a jigsaw puzzle and put the pieces together yourself, kind of map out the timeline yourself and really try to figure what's going on. And so to really capitalize on that, we actually went around and asked people to screenshot kind of the order of the episodes that they were presented to them. And we some interesting feedback. So for example, we had the same order, no, right?
Yes. So this is where I got confused because everywhere that I looked it up, all the discussions online were talking about how Netflix would choose a random order for you. Now, I'm not saying that it's not possible, right? I'm not saying that it's not possible, but if it was really random, besides the last episode, apparently the last episode is always going to be white when Netflix gives it to you. But I got confused because if it was really random, it would be very, very unlikely that you and I both had the same exact order. That's not how it works. The statistics would be very, very I think you'd have a better chance at winning money on a scratch off, than the chances that we got here. But we kind of went with our own order because we went in with the challenge saying, "Oh, you can watch it in any order," and by God, did we say we'll take you up on that offer.
I mean, see, now I always thought going in before they dropped the episode list that it would already be in order, or, and I guess you could just start wherever. But yeah, as you said, it is randomized. But I guess we're probably one of the few that had the same exact order. Just for everybody listening. So again, when you log on to Netflix and you look at the order of the episodes, they're all colored based titles. Everyone should typically have a different order. We had the same. Ours went, and correct me if I'm wrong, green, yellow, blue, violet, orange, red, pink, white, and that was ours. Now I did confirm some other people had different ones. Yeah, and I'm like thinking to myself, maybe it's like kind of a regional thing. So I asked Dr. Jace, and you and Dr. Jace live relatively close to each other. Maybe it was like kind of going off of area code or something. This is interesting because I also checked with a friend in Texas, Javon, and I asked him to screenshot. So his started with green too. Like, so it seems like a lot of people have green as their starting point. Dr. Jace had yellow as the first episode.
Interesting.
Right.
So I wonder, instead of it being true random, if the episodes had like maybe 5 different variations or maybe 8 different variations instead of random. Because true random would be like the permutations would be like of 7, and that's a big number. You know what I mean? So I very weird. I just find it very weird that I think that's what turned me off. That's what I said. I'm not gonna watch this in that order, because the moment that you told me it's the same order, I was like, oh, can't trust it. Gotta go by my gut now and go my own way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's more fun to don't even use, even though it's randomized and it might be the same as someone else. I think you should still pick and choose how you want to navigate this. So I guess, what is Kaleidoscope? We've been talking about this idea of it's a jigsaw puzzle, put the pieces together. Well, what do we put in the pieces together? It's a heist thriller. It's a crime drama. There's a centralized crime. And the idea is the episodes, when you start them, you enter a different point in the timeline of the crime. And I mean, again, that's cool in theory. Was it executed right? Real quick, this is done by Eric Garcia. I don't know if you're familiar with his work. I'm not too familiar. I've heard of some things that he's done. Repo Men, which was a film that came out not too long ago with Jude Law and Forrest Whitaker. And then there was Matchstick Men with Nick Cage and I believe Sam Rockwell. Yeah, not too familiar with what he's got going on. However, he's the spearhead. You got guys like Ridley Scott coming in, producing this show. It seems a lot of people are putting their bets on this show. It sounds like you get Giancarlo Esposito as your lead. Was the actual end result, our overall thoughts? What did you think of the actual show and your whole experience by the end of it? Where do you stand?
I think it was an interesting premise that kind of fell flat in certain places. There were certain characters that really did fall flat, and maybe it's the way that I watched. Maybe it was dependent on the order that I watched them. Especially with like the whole Stan and Judy and Bob love triangle going on. I feel like if I would have got to know them earlier, I would have cared about them more, but there was definitely something left out. But I felt like there was enough of Leo's story to make it interesting. I feel like it works best when you're just following Leo's story and people connected to him. That's where the story really shines. When it's not a Leo focused or a Roger focused episode, uh, the series kind of falls a little flat.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little unfortunate. Like I see what they were going for, but especially with a heist, it kind of when not everyone has very interesting motivations like Leo, because I think the most interesting part is understanding why Leo does things throughout the entire, because we are led to believe he's doing, you know, he's doing things for a certain purpose, and then when he does something that's contrary to that throughout the episode order that you watch, you're like, what is Leo doing? Like, I don't understand. But everyone else kind of was very direct, at least of the main crew. The main crew, everyone was very much like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I know here, I know this. And they kind of fall into tropes, you know.
Oh, yeah. Tropes is a good word. I would probably use that. Like you said, so Leo, that's Giancarlo's character, probably the one you probably invest the most time, because the story really does really good by him. Everybody else, like you said, very kind of falls flat story wise. And then, yeah, I think it does fall into a lot of heist tropes. And then two, yeah, I think a lot of the characters you don't care to invest in because we don't really understand, their motivations. We don't, they maybe the writers, they really didn't give too much time to them. But I will say this to everything that we just said, and we're going to get into it more, depending on where you start your Kaleidoscope journey, really kind of factors into the overall experience with all the characters and, everything. And that part, I think they did a good job at, as far as, and we'll get into it as far as our order and how that made us view different things. Do you think this show erred on the side of safety? I mean, it's a cool concept, but then what we actually are presented in plot, it seems very, as we said, tropey, basic. Did they push it enough for you?
I feel like in some aspects they were very good at making certain people feel real. Like I feel like Leo having to like live in a world where like this, like, where he was a thief, but he was a thief by necessity, and then it turned into something else, was very interesting to see. And then I feel like other people were just like other characters were kind of fell flat, and I guess they had their storylines, but at certain points I'm like, would this happen? Would this really realistically happen? And I'm really thinking about the FBI agent.
Ooh, yes, Abasi, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like her character really got the worst of it throughout the entire series. She was tricked. She was, she was lied to, and then in the end, she ended up in a worse place where she started. It, and there were also some people like I feel like I enjoyed Bob a lot more as the series went on,
Okay.
or as I got to know. And maybe that's because I ended the series off with episodes that happened before the heist rather than the heist itself. Bob before the heist, there were certain episodes, and I ended off at a certain point where I'm like, wow, Bob is actually useful and not just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was other characters where it kind of fell to the backside, like I forget his name, the one that kept drumming.
Oh, RJ.
Yeah, insignificant.
Ooh,
Every time I saw him, I was like, I have not seen a lot of you. You're probably already dead, and I don't care to invest in you.
oh
Um,
man. Everything you're pointing out, it's like, depending on where you start, it's like you would think you get some like great depth and backstory when the episodes building up to the heist, and then it's like, I don't think they serviced all their characters that well.
they did not. Yeah, some of these characters really got shafted by the experience. I feel like a character that actually was really well done by the experience, that was kind of separate from Leo, was Judy. Funny enough, Judy's also the ending that is extremely open-ended at
Oh
the
yeah.
end. So there is something to say about Judy and where her character ends up, but I also feel, and I have to say this now, Stan. Every time Stan came on screen, it did. I kept feeling like this would be so much better if it was Huey from The Boys.
Who's that? That's Jack Quaid. Yeah.
Yeah,
He gave me Huey vibes for sure. I was definitely
he
getting Huey
really did.
vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think here when let's now start really getting into what's going on, and that I think will drive kind of this deeper conversation. We are full spoilers here at the Yonko table, folks. If you have not finished all 8 episodes of Kaleidoscope, you might want to turn back now. So yeah. So this is it. So what's happening? So as we've been mentioning, we drop in names like Leo Pap, that is Giancarlo's character. Right off rip, kind of escapes prison. As we said, he's a career thief out of necessity, and now it's different. And now he's driven back into the game, newfound motivation, gathers a crew, one last score, and that's kind of what's going on. We got the setup to the heist, the actual heist, the crew, the FBI, the target. So they're trying to steal bonds from some shady bankers, from a high security vault.
Yeah, I mean, at some points, oh man, I guess we'll get into it because it's really interesting to talk about, like, who they're stealing from
We can talk about it
and
right
why.
now. This,
Oh yeah,
these are the targets. This is what
okay,
they're going for. They're some bonds.
yeah. So they explained it in the show that these were like pre 1972 bonds or 1973 bonds.
Yes, the ones that
So
went undocumented or turned
yeah,
in.
the unnumbered, but they still can be turned in, and they're targeting somebody named Roger Salas,
Correct. Roger
which
Salas.
he seems like, throughout the show, when I because of where I started, Rogers seems like just a big, like, ass
Yes,
of himself.
correct. Absolutely.
But I also see, like, as the show went on and I got to see more of him before the heist, I was like, oh, Roger may not be a bad guy. Like, he might not, he's not a good guy, but he's not necessarily any worse than everybody else. But I think the real villains, I hate to say this, the real villains are these triplets, and
The
I don't know
triplets.
when we're gonna talk about them in this podcast, but these triplets they're comical and scary, but in the wrong ways, I think, because they kind of just seem like businessmen and they own the money and they're like, oh yeah, we own the money and we need to make sure our money's secure and we'll make people disappear. That's who they're stealing from, and it's a very important plot point of why, of who they're stealing from.
Yes.
Why is this an important plot point? Because they just might make you disappear one day. I don't know. Like that's
no, it's important. I find them somewhat generic, and it was the scene where he explains kind of what their triplets deal is. I'm like, oh, okay. So they are the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
There's no depth. They're just evil. They're just bad. So that's the target. As you mentioned, Roger Salas, he's in charge of keeping their bonds safe behind a high security vault. That's what his company specializes in. I have an interesting journey with Roger Salas. Let's talk about the crew real quick. The crew seems very heist crew. There's Leo, the mastermind, of course. You have Ava, the enforcer, who
is she an enforcer?
I
thought she was.
She said, "I want to be a head of security," and she's got all the guns.
That's not an enforcer. But
what would you call her?
She was security and documents.
Yes, she provides them the IDs and the passports. Yeah, okay. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't know what to call her. I didn't really know. Kind of.
There was like a whole board on it. But then materials was Stan. He was Leo's, which I think a big plot point is that Leo is a name depending on where you fall on where you start. Leo is what we get introduced to him as, but his real name is Ray
Vernon. Yeah.
But Stan was Leo's cellmate when he was in prison for something that happened in the past, which, but he's like the guy who, he just knows a guy. I know a guy that can get very weird.
Sounds like a New Yorker. New Yorkers know everybody, right? I know a guy.
I think he's New Jersey.
Oh, he's new. Okay. Well, everybody knows somebody in the Northeast, so he can get anything they need. Apparently, just literally anything. If you need it, he's got it. Judy
got larva for a guy. I don't know if one will mention this, but he got larva for a guy disguised as cheese.
I don't know.
I don't know. Very weird how they choose to portray that he can get things.
Right. Again, kind of some of them seem underdeveloped in their backstory, and it's like that probably could have helped. Just kind of be cooler. Just be cooler to watch. I don't know. I thought Judy, when they introduced Judy and kind of went over her background, I thought that was going to be kind of a cool angle. She's explosives. Her father was a professor in Egypt, I think, Cairo, they mentioned. And she took a liking to mixing chemicals. So she's into explosives.
The chemist.
The chemist, right. She's married to Bob.
Bob is like this crazy, like very weird dude who's very impulsive.
I feel this is bad to say. So the actor is Jai Courtney.
Oh my God, that is Jai Courtney.
It's Jai Courtney.
Because you want to know something? Because I saw him and I didn't recognize him as Jai Courtney because I didn't look up who's playing who. But I thought because Stan reminded me so much of Jack Quaid, I was like, they have a Jack Quaid ripoff and they have a Jai Courtney ripoff. But wow, it actually is Jai Courtney. Good for him, because that's who I was thinking of the entire time that they were playing while I was watching.
Did he give you Captain Boomerang vibes here?
Jai Courtney acts like Jai Courtney in all his movies.
Okay, so he's
So
just Jai
yeah,
Courtney. Okay,
he's just Jai Courtney.
okay.
But he did give me Captain Boomerang, but I feel like he really was Bob in this. I feel like there was a progression. I have to give him props because uh, I feel like his was one of the only characters that had a progression. We see him slowly lose his sense of humor,
Yes,
um, which was already, demented as it is.
yes.
But he kind of just he's one of the ones that goes on a very big change, uh, and kind of keeps the narrative moving, especially with the events after the heist. So
Yeah.
I have to give him props because he did act, some of the episodes well. Um, then there's RJ, who's the driver.
The driver, RJ the driver.
Um,
I think he's on the spectrum. Uh,
yeah,
and
they took some elements of probably Baby Driver,
oh, with the
another heist
drumming.
movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
with the music and that's where I was kind of like, I feel like this has been done before, maybe better in a better sense.
I
Um,
mean, dare I say, did you see him drive at all?
no, we did not. RJ was very forgettable because uh, this is a very big spoiler, but he ends up dying. Like, and we
Oof.
barely see any of.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Again, when you talk about where you start in the show, that's a very like, oh wow, if he's dead, I guess I'm gonna learn a lot about him in the next couple episodes.
Nope.
Or I'm gonna like grow to care for him. That way, his death is high key effective, But
Nope.
but again, we'll get there. We'll get there. We're almost there. Yeah, all right. You tell me if you count this person as part of the crew, Hannah, the inside man.
Oh, I don't. Hannah was so hidden for me because the episodes with Hannah happened later for me.
Oh, okay, okay.
That it kind of was this twist. I knew Hannah. Because of where I started, I knew something was up with Hannah, but I didn't know that was Hannah.
Okay.
So, um, and I think where White ends off, which is like, I think a great place to end the series. I think that's where they intended for the series to end.
Right.
Hannah even has a moment where she's like, "Oh, I'm not your inside man. I'm doing my own thing." I think that's very important to the show, and I'm very important to how where these characters end up. But yeah, I feel like Hannah was very interesting. I just feel like there were elements of her story, just like everyone's story, and I'm like, wow, this is not getting explained at all. So yeah, in the end, I just feel like some of the crew got shafted by by the writing. And then we have to mention the FBI agents.
Yeah, of course. Abasi.
The girl one and the guy one.
I don't even know the guy's name. I know Abasi. That's pretty much. I missed the guy's name, but again, it's like they have inklings of a story they want to explore, and they ultimately do not explore it. So Abasi and her partner, the guy's infatuated with her. We can't cross that line. We're agents. We're partners.
Yeah,
I guess.
And also Abasi is the more experienced one, but also has a troubled past, and
which I don't understand how she's still employed by the FBI.
No, I can, because that was one of the more believable aspects. Think about it. Yeah, think about it. Think about how many like law enforcement and police officers and agents do terrible things, and then they're like, "Here's a slap on the wrist. Don't do it again," and then they just come back.
Well, if you talk about it from that angle, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I just feel like there's other aspects of her story specifically that I'm like, this would not, I don't understand how this would happen. So I'm very confused, but also I think one of the interesting dynamics, how they kept it kind of interesting to watch, is that he is very new. He's very green
Very
to the
green.
agent job, um, and he kind of gives a very different perspective to Abasi's kind of paranoia
Hmm.
um, from being in the field so long.
Toby.
So
Toby is his name. Last
Toby,
name Officer or Agent Toby.
wow, I didn't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are like the main players. Um, I guess there isn't a lot of you know things going along. We get to see some of the backstory for Leo, which I guess we'll talk about when we talk about episode order
Well, yeah.
and why it's important.
Let's do episode order right now. So we got the players laid out. We got the
Mhm.
heist. We got the target. Um, yeah. Now let's play around. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and let's give our audience. This is the chronological order. If you were to
Yeah,
watch this show chronologically, this is how it goes. It would go Violet, which is 24 years before the heist. Green, 7 years before the heist. Yellow, 6 weeks before. Orange, 3. Blue, 5 days before the heist. White is the actual heist. Red, the morning after. And pink, 6 months after. That is the chronological order. Now, with
yeah,
that said, I think, as you said, Nino, I think white is clearly finale-esque.
yes.
I think that's probably, yeah, I would agree. That's probably a really good place to end your watch. With that said, go. What was your order? How did you tackle this?
I started on probably the worst episode to start on, which was Red, which was immediately after the heist.
Okay.
Um, it starts off kind of with Leo in like a pensive thought and trying to escape the water and the gate, and them escaping on a boat to somewhere. And we get the inkling that the heist went wrong, and then we see it where everyone kind of meets up at the safe house and starts blaming everybody for the heist going wrong. And someone's hiding something. Um, then we get like we meet some of these other characters, which I didn't know at the time, but we meet Roger Salas as Hitman,
Yeah.
and then we meet,
Carlos,
yeah,
the
and we
generic
meet
hitman.
also the generic Hitman who does what he says,
Oh,
does
well,
what he's
not
told.
only does he do what he says, he does just whatever the hell he wants. Doesn't cover tracks, just kills whoever.
Yep.
No rhyme or reason. Interesting character.
And then we meet some of Stan's background characters, like his mom and his sister,
No,
and
that's his wife.
oh, that's his wife. No,
That's
that
his
seems like
wife.
his sister.
You're sleeping on the couch, Stan.
Oh, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
That wife did not treat Stan well. But yeah, I was just like, this is very weird. And then we get some things with Hannah and Roger, and they're trying to cover it up from the FBI agents. This all seemed like if I knew these characters beforehand, I would have been invested in what was happening, because this was this seemed like a lot of like, oh, uh, this episode probably relied on tension from knowing the characters, but
Mm-hmm.
going in and actually knowing nothing about them, I was very, I almost dropped the series after this, because
Interesting.
I was like, oh, I don't know what's going on, and maybe that's why I was led to believe that there are better episodes to start on, and maybe that there's like, instead of having it be completely random, maybe that there's only like 3 episodes that the series could start on, and then it goes from there.
Serves as
Uh,
launching points.
yeah, like I feel like green, great launching point. Blue's a bad launching point, but green, yellow, violet, those are all great launching points.
Uh,
But yeah,
Well,
So what did you start on again?
so I started on White. I started on the heist.
Oh,
And honestly, okay, so to your point with starting Red first, part of me feels you can start with Red and then just it's like it's that scene in the movie where he's like, you're probably wondering how I got here.
I hate that though.
You don't like narratives
hate,
like that?
I hate narratives like, and I think it's just become a meme. It definitely has become a meme on Twitter. Where it's like, record scratch, freeze frame. Now
Yes,
you're probably
yes.
wondering why, and I hate those, and they also happen like immediately after. Red doesn't seem like immediately after. Red seems like the fallout of immediately after, because usually those things happen like immediately after something happened, or we see some of the action of the climax. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that there's another climax throughout the movie where the character has to learn something. This feels the like a fallout,
Yeah,
and I
no,
think
definitely a fallout.
yeah, I feel like a fallout would have more impact if we knew anything that was going on. I just sat there confused, and I thought it gave me a weird place to start, because I was wondering if the whole series is going to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, this episode made me starting on this episode made me almost drop the series.
I think that's fair because starting on the heist episode White, well, that's probably one of the cooler episodes, watching them actually do it. They flood the vault. I think the bee scene was probably the coolest of scenes. I was like, oh, I don't know what the hell he's doing, but here are all these bees and he's walking through it. I would only say the one issue I have with if you start at White is you are still confused, no doubt, especially when the betrayal happens. So you see, RJ pulls the gun on Bob and then shoots him, and then Judy shoots RJ, but then she chokes out Bob, and it's like, I don't really understand these character dynamics. They're married, but she's trying to kill him right now. But watching the heist play out at first, I think is a good kind of, that'll definitely reel you in. But I would say the energy in the heist, I don't think there might be one other episode that matches, I feel, the energy of the heist to where, if the heist is peak, nothing else, the gaps between the heist and the other episodes are very wide. But I will say, having watched the heist first, the most confusing thing going in was the kind of the end with Roger and Hannah. So Hannah's like, I'm taking it all. I'm like, who is this girl? Is she part of the team? Why is he crying? Like, what's going on?
Yes. And also you get that wonderful scene where he goes back in to leave something in Roger's personal vault. That felt like an ending. That does feel like the ending.
Yeah.
Because it ends on a thematic conclusion for the character that kind of defines everything that happened before and everything that happens after.
Right.
Because and I guess we'll talk about it like near the end, because I feel like it will make more sense as we we talk about the different episodes and why it's important.
Well, here,
go.
I want to know, when did you watch Violet? Where does Violet fall in your order?
I watched this. The Violet was the very second episode.
Violet was my second episode too.
What a great episode to have as the second episode.
Yes.
Let me tell you, because I thought they were just going after like a billionaire, and I think Red points it out, that they were like, oh, there's always a motive behind the motive. There's always something else going on, and I know that they were all, things were missing, and I thought they were just going after a big business like person. I also thought that Roger and Hannah were in a weird relationship.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like a daughter. It felt like a daughter son. Weird, or it could be romantic.
Yeah.
Because you watch Red too, so that could definitely add to that theory right there.
Yeah. And then So getting Violet's second episode, I think the biggest jaw drop was realizing that Leo was not Leo. His name was Ray, and that he knew Roger in his past. I was
Absolutely. Well, so okay, so it's like when you watch Violet, Violet is supposed to be the peel back the layer episode as to why everything's happening. So it's like depending on when you watch Violet, you know, that could really make sense of the rest of the series, or you're still watching the series and you're, if you're invested, you're invested. But Violet really does give you kind of the answers. It's a revenge story now. It's they knew each other. They were partners. They were friends. And it's like, well, here he is stealing from him. What the hell happened? Here they are. They're both con men stealing. But in white or in red, you learn that Roger is, this billionaire, whatever. So it's like, where did it go wrong?
Yeah, and I feel like one of the drawbacks of Violet was that it painted Roger as this really bad person, and painted Leo as someone who deserves vindication.
Yeah.
I feel like that. I feel like that's a good thing and a bad thing, because as the series went on, I questioned both of those, and I think that's, I guess, the point of the series, because I definitely did question like Leo's and Roger being good people, or like what kind of people that they were. But Violet did help me shape that. It also is interesting to see that Leo did try to make it straight.
Yes.
He really did try, but he was so shaped by like outside factors that deal with like classism and racism. Like he really wanted to. He was always from a lower like section of society. Yes. They make a very big point that Leo only steals from the rich, and Leo makes it a point to only steal from the rich, only steal from banks, only steal from people who can't afford to lose and not notice it's gone. Mm-hmm. And it also seems that like he like, and they make it very, very, very clear that Leo also was shaped by like people being very racist to him. Like the racism was just overt at that country club.
I have my thoughts on kind of overtly racist scenes in TV and movies where it's like you can still give off systemic racism, but goodness gracious, when the guy said this ain't some cookout, I was like, what is this? Don't get me wrong, no, Giancarlo acts that scene very well. I'll say that. Yeah.
I just feel like, but I also feel like it may be on brand with these rich, out of touch white people, because he says this isn't some ghetto cookout.
Yes.
And then these people are so out of touch with like reality and with Black people that immediately after saying that and like being very racist to his accountant's family, he calls her back in to fix the books.
Right.
And I'm just like, hello? That's not. And I guess that's the part where I was like, this is kind of believable. Like, I can believe that, rich white people are just so out of touch that they decide to, be overtly racist, thinking that they're in the right, and then have the people that work for them that they were racist to be like, oh, come back, I need you to fix something for me.
Right. Without some, I don't think he thanked her for coming, but didn't apologize for the incident the other day. But I guess, I took it as not to say that racism isn't a problem today, but I was like, oh, this is the 90s, I guess. a little less woke, a little more, still very problematic. But I do, Violet reveals that they are partners, and Roger is not who he says he is. He's Graham Davies. And we ultimately see that they have a heist gone wrong, and the victim is his wife.
Yes.
Right. And from there, his wife dies. He's going to take the fall, and he's leaving Hannah behind. So for me, I was like, oh, that's Hannah. That's the girl from the heist who took the bonds. That's his daughter.
When coming from Red to Violet, I never made the connection that I thought the assistant to Roger was just some random like girl. Like I was like unassuming. I was like, damn, Leo like left his daughter to fend for herself. That's crazy. Like, that I was just so in shock by that, and it ultimately was just like I didn't make the connection that she was going to appear back in the series.
Well, let me tell you this because my third episode was Pink. Well, so Pink, is like the very chronologically end. But the fact that Hannah is Ray's daughter, and that Ray and Roger / Graham knew each other this whole time, I was thinking Roger knows who Hannah is, but he doesn't. He does not put together that this is Ray's daughter, not once. And I was like, damn, I thought y'all were family friends. I thought this was some kind of conniving plot point as far as like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to take everything from Ray. I'm going to take his daughter away. Which sounds like a better story to me, and then it's not. That's not what happens. That's just somebody he recruited fresh out of college. And I was like, really? You don't recognize her? That kind of took me out a little bit.
Well, in Pink, I also went with Pink as the, what do you call it, as my third episode.
Damn. Okay, so we did Violet and Pink as our third. Okay.
I think Pink was, I was just interested because I didn't even see the description. I just went with Pink.
Yeah, I never read the descriptions. I just chose a color. Yeah.
Yeah. And Pink was, so this is where things started to get a little muddy for me because in that episode, they do say that Roger does say that he did know that she was Leo's daughter.
Oh, he knew?
Yeah. He knew, and he was trying to protect her and give her a place in society.
Okay.
But he also knew that she worked hard, but he would never mention that to her. You know what I mean? Like to him, that at least that's what I got from it. Because remember when Leo visits him and gives him the sausage.
Yes.
But yeah, Pink was just a very interesting episode because it was really the resolution to everything. I still, after seeing Red and after seeing Violet, when Leo makes the call to his daughter with a child, I did not make that connection that was Hannah still. I did not recognize the actress from Red and the actress from Pink. I did not recognize them, either of them. And I was just like, and it's the same actress, but I didn't recognize her. And I guess I was just very unassuming. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a different actress. So it's nice that he got in touch with his daughter. I just did not make that connection at all. Because
Tati Gabrielle is the actress, for those listening.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, she went through a couple of hairstyle changes throughout the series.
That is true. She did go through a couple hairstyle changes. I think it finally clicked for me in a later episode that I got to. But yeah, Pink was the resolution. So there was a lot of hiding out. I was very confused but because Leo did not seem interested in helping anybody, he did not. He seemed like he got injured, uh, because this is before we know what we know, going forward. Pink was just a very interesting third episode because we kind of see Leo like in a dying state. You know what I mean?
Very dying state. Yeah. Parkinson's is taking him.
Yeah, but we don't know it's Parkinson's at this point.
Yeah.
I
We did not know it was Parkinson's. Yeah.
yeah, because I watched Red and because his foot got caught in the cage while he was trying to swim back up, I was like, oh, maybe he got injured from the job that he didn't realize until after, because there was the whole shootout. There was a bunch of confrontations, and he's just like getting, getting older and et cetera, et cetera. And then the whole fallout with Bob happens. Bob catches up to him. He's trying to find Stan and Judy. I didn't know who Stan and I knew who they were, but I didn't know that there was a love triangle. And it was just very, there was a lot of things happening, but then I think one of the big moments of that episode was the finale where Bob is like on the beach and he gets tricked by Leo to get arrested by the FBI.
Right.
And Judy finds the money and has to decide whether to stay with Stan, which they've been doing very bad on their own.
Correct.
They've been going from motel to motel, trying to pull off scam after scam, can't even go back to their old life, can't start a new life because they don't have money.
And do we get the conclusion? She drives off, or is it we never see?
We never see. She's just looking at the empty road and looking back at Stan, who is enjoying his lengua tacos. So I was like, okay, and it never made sense why Stan had a fascination with like meat until later. I was like, why is Stan like lengua so much? Like, why is he such a connoisseur of meat?
I didn't even pick that up that he was.
Yeah, that's the whole reason why he's like, oh, we have to go before 10 o'clock because if they ran out before 10 last time. And then he says it in another episode where he's like, every time I order lengua, they get it wrong. And he gets really upset about that, but that's because he's a butcher.
Right, right. He owns yes.
Yeah. So I just found I was very, there were still some elements that were confusing, but enough of a narrative to be like, oh, Bob is on the hunt for them, the FBI is on the hunt for them, Leo's trying to like keep low, Stan's trying to keep low, and then this guy Roger is in jail. Prison. Yeah, he is in prison, and he's like ordering Bob to go out and.
Well, Bob is offering. Bob is like, you pay me, I'll go get revenge for you. I'll go take care of Ray. I'll go take care of everybody who was part of that heist that put you in here. But at that point, because being the third episode and you had already seen Red, I was like, oh, there's got to be another episode that sets this up, because I did not see Roger get arrested. And now they know he's not Roger. They know he's Graham. So I was like, there's definitely got to be an episode between this. But this is very epilogue-esque, Pink, because Ava also eats it here.
Yes, and so does the lady who took her from Argentina.
Yes, her nanny.
Her nanny.
Right.
Yep.
So, and again, if you enter so early, it's like, do I care? Do I care? Does she have a relationship with Leo? Is that why he's so broken about this? I don't understand.
Yes, the answer is yes. I was very confounded because they didn't explicitly state
not once
them, but they were very on the nose about them being in a relationship.
Very much so. I saw some hand to ass touching and very flirtatious, but they never really said it. But the final moments of Pink, outside of Bob in the sand, Ray has the emotional phone call with Hannah, but also then Ray is being followed by a kid with a gun, and gunshot fades.
And I don't know how that realistic that is, because this seems like a little bit of overacting to me on, and maybe just of how they shot it, because like Giancarlo, I guess they told him just be a guy with Parkinson's and walk with a suitcase randomly in Central Park and it's cold, and I was like, okay, and he's just like, oh, and then he just gets shot, and then it ends, and then I'm like, okay.
You know who that kid was, though, right?
Yeah, that's like Roger's son, apparently.
Yeah, it's his son. Yeah, it's Roger's son.
Doesn't make sense why Roger's son would have any connections, or know who Leo is. Doesn't
None.
make sense. It would make more sense that it was the FBI agent, Agent Toby.
Right.
It'd make a lot more sense if it was Agent Toby. It'd be very Departed-esque,
Yeah. I just feel well, we only get introduced to Roger's son, I believe, in white. And
there's another, I think, in blue as well. We get him for like one small scene.
Okay, so with that said, it's like, oh man, I don't even know if Roger's son being the one that pulls the trigger is hitting home for me, because I'm like, I hardly know him. I hardly know his relationship with Roger. Apparently it is skewed, and it is, not necessarily the greatest, but it doesn't do much for me. You're right.
Yeah, but it's just like, Dad, I want to come work at the company with you and not be in college anymore. Ugh. And that's his whole character. And then I guess you could say that Roger's just like, son, I accept you. And then I guess that was stolen from him by Leo. It would have been a lot more interesting if that was developed.
Yes.
I truly think that he was only included in the story to make Roger look like a less bad guy.
Yes. Give him some humanity, some ethos, yeah. Right.
Or maybe even some collateral. That's how I'm viewing it. Because then that Roger is risking a lot, just living on his day-to-day because he's trying to make it. He's trying to make it for his family.
Right.
And that's what they were. They weren't. His family weren't characters. They were collateral.
Yeah.
And I hate to put it in a business transaction, but that's what these characters felt like. They weren't. They were
hardly characters.
They were opportunities for Roger to show that he cares about people and that he wants what's best for people, not actual people.
Right. Because everything we get, I mean, we meet his wife, barely knew her. We meet the son, barely knew him. And then ultimately, when it came down to it, was Violet enough for you to be like, Roger's not a good guy?
Violet was enough for me because he
left her. He left Lily.
Irrelevant. Oh yeah, Lily was
the wife.
The wife, not Ray's Roger's, wife. Not Roger's former girlfriend or whatever. Because he had a girlfriend, but put it to the side.
Irrelevant. No, but Lily, Ray's wife.
Yeah,
could have saved her.
He could have saved her, but he was afraid, and I don't know if I would have judged him as a bad person for that, but it did make me feel like Leo was vindicated in going after him. Mm-hmm. So you know what I mean? Like, And I think what made him more of a bad person was convincing Leo to get back into the crime business. You know,
Yes, when he clearly wanted out and he clearly wanted to go straight. Yeah. No. That makes him selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So again, there's some holes, and I think we'll get into these holes now. I feel outside of Green, the rest of these episodes are kind of just your run of the mill. Like, let's set up the heist, let's get the ball rolling. And then these were episodes that were really, I feel you were supposed to explore characters and why they're here, how versatile are they, and how much of an asset they are to the team. Whether or not we got that, yeah, I don't know. Let's go real quick. What was 4, 5? What's the rest of your order after the third one?
It was orange, green, and blue.
Orange, green, then blue. All right, mine fourth, starting with 4, was blue, yellow, red, orange, and I did green last. So I think it's blue, yellow, and orange are all kind of those intermediate episodes between I guess Violet and the heist.
I forget what orange was, the one centered around the FBI agent Dazi, right?
Yes, orange was a bossy heavy. All right, so with a bossy, I feel they're trying to set up, they want to play both sides of this. You want to see the criminals, you want to see the, authorities in charge or on the
people
case
that are chasing them. Yeah.
Right. That always makes the fun game. If you get to know the cat as much as you get to know the mouse, that makes it a more interesting chase.
Yeah.
I doesn't care for a bossy. Nor do I really understand her connection to Ava at all. Like,
yeah.
I'm not
I feel like
sure.
we understood it in Green a little bit more, because when Leo breaks out, and Green was a very big highlight episode. I feel like that's a great starting point.
Green
for the
is
series.
I agree. Green is a very good jumping point as well. Yeah.
I think at some point during this pod we need to talk about the preferred viewing order, like where we think everything should be.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do that. And let's keep going, and then we'll do that at the end.
Yeah, but Green is definitely I think the best starting place because it's not too backstory heavy. It's kind of sets up the impetus for Leo's character, Leo's character, because now we understand some of the things that I was questioning about Leo, like why is he, a complete mess in pink? What's he hiding? Why didn't he want to help anybody? Why is he a different person, back then? Like, what's his angle? Why after Red, when the thing went sour, he did not he was so quick to be like, let's just go to the safe house, take what we have, and just write it out and see what happens. Why was he so dead set on that versus trying to figure out what actually happened? There was a lot of things that were not making sense, because if he was the mastermind, Green episode, get more of him being the mastermind in Orange, because Abasi was trying to figure out who was part of the crew, and Leo was like in his plans, but when we find out in Green that Leo is diagnosed with Parkinson's, I'm like, I understand now. He has an expiration date.
Yeah, he's a time clock, right?
For him, life is not guaranteed for the long run. So he needs to figure it out and just write it out to him at least.
Yeah.
He's a criminal. He can't get health care. He can't get good health care.
I mean, he's a fake person right now. Leo Papp is not real. Ray Vernon is dead. Right. So yeah, he's running against time or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I think Green. Okay, so when you talk about standout moments that probably separate this show from other shows, I think Green is a really good launching point. But I think Green is also just really fun too. Like it was not that much of an elaborate escape, but I think in execution, putting the whole prison population on shrooms is really funny.
It is really funny. And you get introduced to a bunch of the players in Green.
You do. I didn't realize you were going to meet them all.
Yeah, you meet Judy very early on. You meet Bob. You meet
Stan is his celly.
Stan. You meet Ava. You meet Abasi. I don't think you see Roger in this episode.
No, we do see Roger at the very end of Green. We see Roger because he goes and finds Hannah, and that's when he realizes Hannah is working for Roger.
Yeah,
and that's
I feel like that sets up. I feel like it's a perfect starting episode for something that is very non-linear.
Ooh. Okay. Oh God, I feel now I'm about to give my preferred.
No, we gotta wait.
Okay, fine. Wait. Okay.
I just jumped into it because Green was a very well done episode. Because you see some of the, it went from prison escape to what comes after and then you have a very big emotional pour with Hannah and Leo.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I was like, oh, I'm missing throughout the series. Like, what's not clicking for me? And I think Hannah was not clicking for me. That's where I was like, oh, I get it now. Red starts to make a little bit more sense. But I think the episode that I watched right before, Orange, was just a run-of-the-mill episode that didn't make much sense.
Orange I feel doesn't really move the story that much. It really just kind of sets up, I guess, Ava as far as her eventual betrayal goes, and why.
Betrayal.
Yeah, betrayal. Right. But no, I think Green is a great starting point, and I like what you said about as far as Hannah goes, because that's really going to play into my preferred order. I think Yellow is a really good episode. I think I really enjoyed Yellow.
Yeah, I would have enjoyed Yellow if I started with Yellow near the opening.
Yes.
But I ended on Yellow.
So you ended on Yellow. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. At that point, I was like, well, all right.
Well, actually, I mean, I ended on Green. So on Green, it was just kind of like, it was almost like I went entirely backwards, just with a couple of, ones out of order. But Yellow definitely would serve one well in the beginning versus kind of near the end. Damn. Yeah. I would not try to end on Yellow. Definitely not. But I think Yellow was fun. Now we see him bringing everybody back in. As you said, we did briefly meet majority of the cast in Green. The Diamond Way heist I found to be creative enough. I guess it was, it was fun. It was fun.
Bob was very useful that episode.
And
because
useless.
I feel like, but that defined his character. Like, yes, he was somebody that was very useful, but he came at a cost.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I feel like, but I think they were very, very, and I think after seeing Pink, I was like, why did they even let this guy on the crew? And Orange Pink said it, that they were like, why is Ray or Leo and Bob working together? They're oil and water. They would have never gotten along. And I was like, yeah, why would they let Bob on the crew?
Well, yeah, I was kind of like, did you see Bob crack any safes after his injury?
Yeah, he cracked a couple in White.
He did. I might need to go back and rewatch White because I remember he quit halfway through. He's like, "You crack your own safe," you know.
He didn't quit halfway through. The room was flooding, and he was just like, "We got what we came for."
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're
Okay.
like, and he's like, "But I want to crack this specific one." And everybody was like, "We don't kind of want to do this," and Leo was like, "I have to do it."
Right. And they're like,
That's
"What is this
an-
about?
yeah.
What is this about?" Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Bob, I guess Bob proves his worth. But yeah, it was like he does not gel at all since the get-go with
No.
dang near anybody on the crew. And then he
But Yellow does kind of show that he's useful. You know?
but he's a hothead, and that's the counter to
Yeah.
it. Right.
Yeah.
And he gets his hand shot. His
But
dominant
without him, the heist wouldn't have happened because they
Right.
needed to do. What I liked about this series was that in order to pull off the big heist, they had to do a bunch of different little heists
Yes.
to finance, to set up the big heist. They had to do a bunch of different things to get to the big heist, which I appreciated.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. You know what? You see that sometimes in heist films. I know you see that in the Ocean's films. They might go try to steal a pinch, then that will set off the, turn off Las Vegas's city power. I know you do this in like the Sly Cooper games if you ever played those on PlayStation. But it does make sense. I'll tell you what. I think of when we talk about heist, I think about Doc Ock stealing all that money from the bank, and then I guess placing a collect call to deliver all this equipment to this abandoned pier in Spider-Man 2.
Yep. Who knew? It's just, yeah. That now that you point that out, it's very funny to think about. But this kind of solves a lot of the logistical issues. But I will tell you where these episodes kind of fall flat, and that's why is Ray a thing? I feel like Ray was only there to make the car look like a car.
Wait, Ray? We're talking about Ray or RJ?
Oh, not Ray. Dang, RJ. I feel like RJ was only there to put a costume on the truck.
Yeah.
Because that was his usefulness. He was like, "Oh, I know about cars. We can do this and that, and I also was on a bike." And
I think RJ was probably the most underdeveloped character for the series. I feel not much of his storylines went anywhere. Like he started to have, I guess, a brotherly sister relationship with Judy that I don't think amounted to much because
it amounted to Judy feeling bad about losing RJ in Red and Pink.
But then she shot him. She shot him in White.
Yeah.
And then that kind of lost me there. Yeah, it sucks because he in concept, in theory, he sounds like a fun character, but as you said, he's very much the baby driver.
Yep.
And they didn't really play to that strength. Again, I don't think we see him drive once. I think we see him more on the bike, as you just said, versus driving, which is, I guess, he's the driver.
We see Ava driving. We see Stan driving. But we don't see, and we see Bob driving. We don't see anybody else driving in the series.
Nope.
So,
Let me tell you though, Yellow, I forgot. The beginning of Yellow is Hannah focused. It's very Hannah.
Yes.
This stuff I thought was really good. Kind of the espionage that's going on at SLS with Roger and Hannah. And at this point in the game, for me, I still was unaware. I was like, maybe Hannah was in the whole time because I had not watched Green yet. So I didn't have confirmation that, she knows what Ray's planning at all. I guess there's an inkling of it too here at the very end of Yellow. But when you watch the beginning of Yellow, I'm like, damn, so Hannah's been playing this game all along. She's like a master thief. She's a corporate espionage. She's security tester.
She's framing people.
She's framing people. Right. I thought this was this moment here. I was like, all right, this show had some really strong moments, and this is what I liked. I was really invested with a lot with what Hannah was doing versus I didn't even care about the crew. I was like, damn, how's Hannah gonna play this? How's she gonna get the VP job? How's she gonna plant this thing on this dude to get him fired? Because we see him die in Blue. The character Andrew. I was actually very invested in the kind of going on at SLS versus the crew just kind of sitting around.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like Roger stands out, because you can tell that in this business, at least, he tries so hard to keep it legitimate as can be. Like you can tell, and that's where I appreciated the series, because it felt like the more I wanted to feel vindicated. I wanted Leo to feel vindicated, but the series also made me question if that was even the right thing to do, because Roger does have a business, and you could say that the series is kind of just making me feel bad for rich people for, being rich, and that's not really my personal ethical standpoint. I'm in real life, I'm like, oh no, you're rich, you still got money, shut up.
Yes.
But Roger was like, he had a past and he was trying to do better, which I think I appreciated more in this as the series went on. Blue was a really good episode because it showed that he was just like, look, I'm getting my hands dirty, but you're trying to steal from me. You're doing this. I'm trying to keep this company. And he's under a lot of pressure because even though he's rich, right, he's also at the mercy. He's not rich enough.
He's answering to somebody.
Rich. Yes. But he's better off than most other people. He also has a family, that he cares about. And when Leo breaks into his house and to get information, to get, there's a whole setup about we need something you have, something something else, with the machine. So Leo has to go steal from him. Leo realizes he has this entire family. Am I right to mess that up? Am I right to mess up a family just like he messed up mine? I appreciated that,
No, I think it's done well. I think when from that point when he breaks into Roger's house, it's very much, this could have been my life. I was trying to go legit, and that's the thing, is that he's like, this man still ruined that for me,
But at the same time, Roger says in Pink, and this is where I'm starting to understand Roger. Roger was like, you're the one who decided to stay in prison. You're the one who, when you got out of prison, or you could have come to me and I would have tried to help you get out of prison, and I could have helped you get legit now that I'm legit. He says that. He said, and Leo is so just blinded by revenge and blinded by this is what I should have, that he doesn't see that Roger is also trying to protect Leo's legacy. He's trying to protect Hannah, in ways.
Right.
And he's trying to, make sure that she has something to have, a life for herself. I don't know how far that goes, because Yellow has this whole plot point where Hannah is pregnant.
Yes.
And it's never explicitly stated who the father is. I unfortunately have a very sneaking suspicion that maybe there was something with Roger. because in Red, she's like, and you'll get everything you I'll make sure you get everything you deserve. There was that one scene, and I was like, this is very weird. Very, very weird.
I'm pretty sure she just was artificially inseminated with her wife or girlfriend, which is interesting because in the descriptions, her roommate is regarded as her roommate and her sister, but I'm pretty sure that's her girlfriend.
No, that's her sister.
When the hell? I could have sworn that was her girlfriend.
No, she was adopted by a Korean family.
Oh.
That's why her last name's Kim.
Okay. I was like, I thought they were a couple.
No, I think you get that because she poses as a lesbian in Yellow. I don't know if she's queer or not, but she was just very comfortable with making a lesbian feel like she was interested and then just using her, you know? I don't know. We don't know much about Hannah. We know that she's pregnant, but she also says in Yellow that she tried to text the guy, the father, and he has not answered her about it.
Ooh.
And she was like, if only, like, you know, I wonder, or something like, if only he wanted to actually like be invested in his child. It's his child, you know. And
ooh, that's sticky for me. I hope not. I hope it's not.
But
Roger.
now that I think about it, I think maybe I don't think it's Roger, just because if I'm to believe Roger, I think he knew that was Leo's daughter, and I also think that because this person, Hannah was in contact with Roger a lot.
Right.
There's no way that Roger would, you know, see her every day and she would not bring it up to him. You know what I mean? And her not just, and you know what I mean? So there's something we just don't know who the father is. This was, for all we know, it was the Immaculate Conception.
Which I'm Immaculate Conception. I mean, I'm okay not knowing the father. I feel it was hardly a plot point. She was pregnant, and then I guess that raises stakes for her to get the bonds as well. But then it doesn't come up again till Pink, and she's had the baby.
Yeah, and again, I feel like this baby was more so for Leo's character than it was for Hannah's character. Because you could have easily dropped that storyline and Hannah's story still be the same.
Yeah.
But Leo's story wouldn't be the same.
Correct.
So I just feel like I feel like this series, and I feel like we've talked about this like over text, this series is strengthened when you see Leo as the guiding point through, rather than any other character. If you can take bits and pieces of other characters away, and the story still is the same. But I feel like if you take anything away that is intertwined with Leo, the series falls apart a little bit because things don't hit as home as much.
No, absolutely. It's very much Leo is your focal point and your center point, to where the storylines that definitively intersect with his are stronger elements to the overall story. When they try to do these other plot points, for example, RJ is a really weak plot point. He's a really weak character. Stan and Judy are fun characters, but they have no direct interconnectivity with Leo. So therefore their story
until Pink,
right? Until Pink.
It's only until that love triangle starts interfering with Leo's life that it becomes interesting, that it becomes like worthy of an episode in of itself.
Right. Stan, you know, he's been there since kind of day one, and then in an episode like Red, we see people like, yo, he's been using you this whole time. You know, how you know he's not lying to you? And it questions their relationship. So yeah, it's very much It was a story written around one character, which is good if done great. It's not done so great here, to where we have these points in the story that just don't feel as exciting or don't feel as, you know, worthwhile to the greater story as a whole.
Yeah.
That's probably the series' biggest issue, I think, other than the tropiness sometimes. Here's the plan.
Yeah,
guys.
I can agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And then I ended on yellow, and then I finally saw white, and everything come together in the heist. And the heist wasn't as exciting as I thought it would be. There were some cool moments, but it wasn't as crazy as Red led it to believe. Like, I was like, why is this place flooded? You know, Red put up a lot of questions that were answered in not as interesting ways that I thought.
Yeah.
And also this whole, so here are some, I think this is the section that I'll call of this podcast, questions about this series, because I know they won't happen in real life.
Okay.
Stan got to the safe house by how? An Uber.
I think he said a lift.
Oh, a lift, because the search. You're right. Wasn't there a storm going on, like a hurricane that was hitting Manhattan? What lift would be out at that time?
Usually, they will tell drivers to either drive with caution or they will suspend it entirely. So
exactly.
Right.
And we know something because we're from Florida.
We are from Florida.
We know about hurricanes. And in a place like Manhattan, which has, is an island surrounded by water with very big buildings, I guarantee you they would not let any car be driving. They wouldn't even let the subway be driving or be going, especially since we find out in White that they blew up
a tunnel,
part of the subway. Yeah.
Right.
So also they blew up a part of the subway and nobody was on them, I guess because of the storm. But then again, if nobody was on them because of the storm, how did he get a lift to get to the safe house? Question.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. They had the question themselves. They're like, you didn't take a lift here, did you? Which, again, stupidity easily can be tracked,
Yeah, and apparently he uses like a proxy or something like that. Again, how would he get a lift with a proxy? I don't know. Something doesn't make sense. And I don't think that their safe house is in Manhattan, to be fair. I think it's in Jersey.
Well, they were trying to get off the island, if you remember. Ava was trying to get off Manhattan. So, yeah, I don't think it's in Manhattan. Might be in Jersey, might be in Brooklyn.
Yeah, the other safe house was in Ohio. Like the one that they end up in Pink. I'm talking about like their base.
Oh, no, the one after the heist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, another thing. I know that ICE works like that. I know that ICE, like, you just make a call and they'll come and arrest people and ask questions later, and maybe you'll never see these people again. I have a question, like, how did the nanny, like, get out of ICE custody?
Didn't Abasi pull some strings or something?
Maybe she did. But that's just living with it as a very real fear. And maybe this is different because Ava was from a very wealthy class, and also Ava is a white woman and the nanny is a white woman, even though they're, from not American WASP people.
Yes.
They could have pulled some strings, and the area that I grew up in were very, very brown and black people that were afraid of being captured by ICE. Maybe, but in my experience, there was always, where I grew up in Miami, it was very real fear that people, you were undocumented, for that many years, it was a very real fear that you're just be disappeared and never come back.
So are we saying the writers did not do their homework?
I think so. I think it was more of a convenience to put more stakes on Ava, because right now Ava had just been the go-to character for everything that had no fun on her. She would just, if every time they try to turn up the heat on Ava, she'd get out of it and she'd
Right.
like turn the tables on them.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess this was a way to be like, oh, immigration policy,
Gotcha.
you know. And again, it was a question. If Ava had done so much, and was a lawyer and this and that, how come she never got, and she had all these connections to do everything that she has been doing? How come she never got her nanny's paperwork in order? And I understand the immigration in this country, policy in this country really sucks. Sometimes you'll apply for 30 years and you'll never get it. But I find it very unbelievable that Ava could fake birth certificates and social security numbers and be passed by the government, but it stops where she's like, oh, can't have somebody get residency papers correct.
I think Abbasi points that out too, as far as like what happened.
Just because you point something out in a story,
no, I'm with you still.
Yeah.
I'm with you still.
Yeah.
It's like, it's very much, you seem like the jack of all trades. You seem like you just do about anything as far as illegally attaining documents, but you didn't take care of your home first,
Yeah. And another question: what happened to those poor little puppies?
Man,
once the ICE took her, I'm strongly thinking that ICE took those doggies, put them in a bag, and threw them in the huts. That's what happened.
I'm not gonna put it past that theory. I'm not.
Yeah.
Just like RJ was an undeserving character or underrepresented character, those dogs. The story did not stand by those dogs.
They were there, they were cute, and then suddenly they're gone.
Just like RJ.
Yeah. And here's another question of believability. If you're in the world of the FBI, right? And you're having issues with keeping custody of your child, there has to be some leniency, if things go south, especially if you're working undercover, like, I find it very unbelievable that like an FBI agent was arrested for possession of something, and then when she wasn't even charged, they were like, you were arrested, no more child gone. I was like, how? And then they were also like, you missed this hearing, you're on thin ice. Again, I don't think they understand that when you're an FBI agent, things have to take a second. Like, they ask you probably at work, your life takes a second backseat to your job because you're an FBI agent, And I think there should have been some leniency. Maybe that's not how this works. I don't know. It felt very It felt very convenient that these string of things happened and that they were very harsh on this FBI agent.
I am not going to try to pretend I know the rules and whatnot, but I will say this. It was her story as far as Abbasi and giving her some character was probably least of my interest. And oh man, where was I going with this? The believability of what the FBI is allowed to do and how they handle their personnel. This show does not do anything for me. But when you talk about the believability of a character, one of the weakest acting moments was when Abbasi knocked the stuff off her desk in that fit of rage.
Yeah. Yep.
I was like, whoa, that was terrible. Like,
yeah.
Come on, I want to be
Um,
invested in the show. I really do. I want to say the show was really good, but then that everything you just said, and then I'm just reminded of her. Ah, I'm like,
Yep.
this is terrible.
I also have to say that the way the twins make people die, very. I was question marks, like a random man. I just come to this country. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, we got to get on the triplets, and then suddenly she just drops dead. I'm like, just because that doesn't make any sense. Did she
There's
get pricked with something?
They're
Like,
Saturday morning
did,
cartoon villains. They could do anything they want.
yeah, I just so these were some of the things that were holding things back, because they were great in context of the stakes for Leo's story, right?
Right.
Like, it's great to have somebody who's trying to stop the heist and will do anything to get there, right? For Leo's story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not great when that person's whole deal is that she wants revenge because she can't see her child anymore in an unbelievable way. You know what I mean?
I think
And
I would have.
also,
I just would have been
yeah,
fine with her just being. I'm trying to get my job done. I didn't
yeah.
need the other stuff. Yeah.
And I feel like there even could have been, they made so much room for Leo with the classism and racism. There could have been a lot of, they could have been like, oh, I'm a woman in this place. And I constantly, like, even because of my past, I'm constantly looked down upon. I'm trying to redeem myself. I feel like her having a child kind of complicated that aspect, because then they had to find a way to complicate things so that she would be even more invested into the heist.
Yes.
You didn't
No.
need all that. You didn't need all that.
You
Like,
didn't. You didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fluff. It was really fluff.
Yeah.
Unnecessary fluff. Yeah.
And it didn't help that Agent Toby was could have been replaced with like a cardboard cutout, and you would have had the same result. He was very uninteresting. He had very big eyes on one thing, and that was getting in Agent Abbasi's pants.
And again, very not needed. There's it again. It was. I think what you have here is a really good outline for a show. It's a heist. It's like your viewing experience is based on where you start watching the heist, and then all you had to do is make the characters really fun to watch, relatable, and worth the investment. And yet there's probably only like 3 characters that are worth investing, and then everything else is just kind of there, and it doesn't work.
I have one more thing, because
Go ahead.
this is what really grinded my gears. The complete unbelievability of it all. It makes sense again when you're talking about Leo's character. It makes sense that he wants to put the jewel in Roger's, safe, right?
Yes.
He wants to put it there because that's his calling card, and that's him saying, I did this to you, and everything will come up for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
My unbelievability is that when he opens it in red, and I have to rewatch this like 5 times because I was like, what popped out of there? We didn't get to see it in red, and I didn't know until white that it was the jewel. But they open the thing in red, and then they're like, how'd that get in there? And he's like, I want to call my lawyer. From that perspective, I thought there was a dead body in there. They stuffed a dead body in there, and they were like, I thought RJ was going to be in that vault because it went bad.
Oh, part of me did think RJ might have been in there, but then I had already saw enough, and then I remembered Violet and how they did steal the orchid. Then I don't remember when I put it together that it was the orchid. No, I put it together because I went white. when did I watch Red? Red was one of my later watches, but because I watched Violet and then I watched I did Pink. Pink definitely says, he's in there because of the orchid, the news report was like Roger Salas is not Roger Salas. He stole this 24 years ago. So I knew it was the orchid, but I understand why you didn't, because you watched Red so early on.
Yeah. But here's the issue. Here's the issue that I have. Why is this one piece of jewelry so damning of evidence? You know what I mean?
Because it was stolen all those years ago.
How did Leo get it?
Leo completed the task and amidst the fire and the chaos.
Okay, how did he keep it in prison?
I don't think he kept it in prison. I don't know where he stashed it, but he stashed it somewhere.
Maybe with Ava, or maybe this was a fake. I don't know, because he could make fakes. But I have this one. This is my question. Why when the FBI goes and opens Roger's case, like Roger's thing, wouldn't they expect to find things in there? Like just regular things that he could own? Why is this you're telling me that this is the Pink Panther diamond, that everybody knows it across the world. It's so recognizable that in common knowledge that an FBI person all has to look at it and then be like, how'd that get in there? You're getting arrested. And then Roger's like, I want to talk with my lawyer. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. If an FBI person actually was like, I want to search your thing, and then opens it and then finds jewels, a normal thing that should be in a safe, I don't believe that it would be enough to cause the downfall of, like, it makes sense. Again, it makes sense because it makes sense for Leo to finally get his revenge and also leave a calling card so that Roger knows who did it and finally complete Leo's arc. It does not make sense after that.
I would say a better written story involves, the crew and their interactions, talking about a legendary heist being the orchid. And, the orchid's name is dropped throughout the series a bunch of times as far as, that diamond's still missing. No one's seen it for 24 years, and then it's slowly revealed that Leo actually orchestrated the theft, had it all this time, planted there, like the legend, but there was nothing surrounding that story element. So it does sound weak when the FBI, for the viewing experience, we're supposed to just believe, oh, the FBI knows that diamond,
And I think it would have been better because maybe Roger had two bodyguards that followed him everywhere instead of that one guy who does everything. Because that one guy gets beat up by the crew during the heist.
Yes.
And they kind of leave him in the fountain. But then he's also good enough to chase after Stan and Leo and the heist in Red, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It would make sense if there was two bodyguards and one of them ended up dying during the heist, and then they shoved his body in Roger's thing, because not only would they have the orchid, but then they'd have a body, and then they'd be like, oh, let's take him in. There's an obvious dead body in here. What's that doing in there?
Right.
Why do you have that?
There's a crime versus he kept saying, it's just they're testing their stuff.
Yeah, and then when they finally come back with it, they're like, this is the orchid. This is the thing that, you know what I mean? It would have made more sense in the real life standpoint for them to like take evidence, like take the damning evidence first, and then realizing there's more damning evidence as the story goes on. But again, I think that this story works when it's Leo's story, and then after that, it doesn't make sense.
No, I agree. They knew Giancarlo was going to carry majority of people's interest in this series. So yes, the elements that tie to his character are probably the strongest bits. I think we've covered pretty much everything I think that this show encompasses. I think we should now give them our preferred viewing order. Now, if you're listening to this point, obviously we done spoiled everything, we done analyzed everything, we done given our how they could have done it better, what makes sense, what doesn't. So if you are here at this point, maybe you skipped ahead to hear a preferred viewing order. I don't think I have necessarily a previewed viewing order. However, I will say this, and I'll go ahead and start. I will just say this. I think key elements such as Hannah and Roger are pivotal to your enjoyment of this story. I feel Violet, you can go two ways with Violet. If you start Violet early on within your first 2 episodes, you know everything you need to know about Roger and Leo's motives, right?
I feel like here is my the preferred viewing order for me, and I'll explain why. Green is the perfect starting point for the series.
I think it is. Yes, I mean Green serves as a pilot essentially.
Yeah, but and you also get to see Stan and Leo's relationship. You get to see Leo at work in his age. You get to see the impetus for him. You get to introduce to a bunch of different characters, and then it goes to Roger. And then I think that immediately after you should get into Violet.
Okay.
Because it ends with, Hannah reading the letter from Leo, and he explains everything that happened. Perfect segue.
Yeah.
Perfect segue. So Green and Violet definitely should, come at the beginning, because you start understanding. I would say that it helps you make the connection that little girl is Hannah, and Hannah will have a bigger part to play in the rest of the series.
Now, I do think how you said Green and Violet, I think Green and Violet are a really good pairing. If you start them off in the beginning, it serves as a great kind of opener. However, if you start the series off, say, with who is second? No, Yellow is second, right? Chronologically, or third. Yellow is third. Yellow is third chronologically. If you start with Yellow and then go through the episodes, right? If you still pair Green and Violet serves as those intermediate flashbacks midway through, that right before you get to the finale, you have now all the pieces before you get to the finale. So that's what that's what I would say as far as Violet and Green, because they give you a lot of information, and I feel those are 2 really major twists, Hannah and Roger. So if you want to get that in the beginning or in the middle, that's your preference.
Yeah, but I would say it works better in the beginning, just because, like you said, Hannah, Roger, and Leo are big parts to why people enjoy the series or will enjoy the series.
Correct.
I feel like when you start with the other team members, I feel like having them come later and having momentum with them as the series goes on, versus having this always being the connecting everything else, helps you start putting the pieces together. Better, in a better way. I think after Violet, is a good place to be in is probably Yellow, just because you get to see, because you get introduced to Bob very early on, but you also I feel like my biggest issue is that I was like, why is Bob here? Bob's not useful. You know what I mean? Throughout the entire thing, because of just, Leo, everything that Bob can do, Leo can do better. But we also know that Leo is on a timer, right. I wouldn't say on a timer. To himself, he feels like because of the disease that he has, he won't be able to do.
He's not 100%.
Yeah, he won't be able to do, to be a good thief, if he keeps delaying things. Right. So but I also feel like it's the classic, oh, get the gang together. And we get to see more of Hannah. Uh, but I could also see that Yellow being maybe a little bit more in the middle. I could also be tempted to think that,
I'm pretty indifferent. I'm pretty much, as you said, I think green is a great starting point. I think yellow really can work as a starting point. Here's where I say it does not work as a starting point. I do not like orange. I don't like blue. I don't like red, and I don't like pink. I don't think anyone should start right there. I do believe, though,
it's half the show.
It is. Well, I do believe this. I believe white is a very interesting starting point. If you start with white,
it can be, because then you start with the ending, and then you see how everything went. Like it's going backwards in a sense.
Well, not only backwards, but it's like you have story that comes before and story that follows by starting with white.
So I can see that there's but I also feel like white is such a good ending because they framed it as an ending.
Yes,
they had that little smile with Giancarlo at the end of the episode.
Yes,
with the it feels like an ending.
It's very climactic. Yeah,
and to go from all these colors, like to go from the absence, quote unquote, of color, black, which is like the introductory of the kaleidoscope, to white, all colors being represented, like all colors coming out.
Right.
I feel like it's very interesting in terms of like, this is the end. This is the end. You go from seeing none of it to seeing all of it all at once.
Right.
I also saw somebody online say that they wished that white was an episode you unlocked after completing all other episodes, like a secret episode. I feel like that would have been interesting, but it also takes away from what they were trying to do, which is like give the viewers choices in what they did. But yeah, right now I have I could be persuaded to put something else somewhere. Like I could be persuaded actually to go from green and violet to orange, actually, because then we get to see some more of like, some more stuff like
Abasi.
I'm thinking, Abasi, and also like she's trying to figure things out. So now we know who's chasing them and what's at stake for the people who's chasing them. And then I can see us going to yellow, so like it goes from, what do you call it?
Well,
green, violet. Wait, go.
I'll go ahead. I'll keep going. I just had a thought, kind of.
Okay. Well, what's your thought?
Well, my thought is just, other than, it's really the starting point that I care about. I don't know if I care about how people choose to go after.
Yeah.
I
mean, but I care about it just because I write stories, because I care about, and this is just good practice for like a writer, for a storyteller. I'm very invested in how the story can be best told, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So right. I was thinking about it. I'm like, how can I view this and get the best possible outcome? Because there had to have been a point where they thought maybe there's a better way of telling this story, and then they just kept up with the gimmick, which it essentially is. But I'm just trying to see how the narrative would easily flow into one another, so that it can create the best idea. You know what? As much as I say that, I still think that starting off strong with green, violet, and yellow, because then we continue the line of Hannah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Leo's always going to be around everybody. Then we get introduced to everybody, because yellow is the classic starting heist movie kind of, let's get the gang together.
Very much.
Happens in every heist movie. That and then you go into orange, because then it would create a dynamic where you've been given the stakes. Now you're introducing to the main characters. Now you're introducing who's trying to chase them.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say this though, there is a lot of fun, and I know we had fun with this, just randomly choosing and then
Yeah, there
sharing
is.
where we, like how we've been doing this podcast, how our viewing experience was different, you know. But I do believe there's probably a really cool way to go about this, but I think you would really have to sit down and take that time to kind of, you know, lay it out how
I'm
fun,
laying
like
it out right now on this podcast.
So I don't
I
have
already-
one. So go ahead. You
I
said
figured it out.
you said green. You said violet.
Violet,
You said yellow.
Yellow, orange, and then I think the rest. I think even while I was watching it and I watched blue, I immediately wanted to go to white because I felt once blue kind of gave us the, all right, let's go in. You know, they gave us the ending where it was like, it's time to go. I feel like though, if we're going in a preferred order and we want to end on white, because that's where they intended on ending.
Yes.
Apparently every time they mix it up on Netflix, it always ends with white. So
let me confirm that real quick.
No. Everyone confirmed it on the news sources I saw. Everywhere confirmed it that it all
That
ends.
Everyone's ends on whites.
Yes, everyone ends on white.
Okay.
So, what do you call it?
Okay.
From orange, I feel like you could go into blue, and then go into red, because
Okay.
I feel like it'd be very interesting to get the lead up to the heist and then immediately subvert and get into the fallout, and then go into pink.
Okay.
And then go into white.
All right. Let me just point out, because I wrote down your list. Outside of green being your first one, you know, chronologically, violet is first, then green. So you just switch number 1 and 2. Everything else you pretty much follow in order, minus cutting out white and saving it towards the end.
Well. Then, you know, I think.
But let me say this one last thing.
No. Because
no. I wonder if you noticed.
Right, you're right.
Did you notice what you did by putting white at the end?
What?
You did Reservoir Dogs.
I basically, yeah. I think I was thinking that. I was like, oh, this is Reservoir Dogs, because Reservoir Dogs is very non-linear. And we don't ever get to see the heist.
You never see the heist, right?
Yeah. I don't know if that's very telling that the preferred viewing order is just a movie that already exists. I don't know if that's very telling. Yeah, and yes, everything kind of comes in very what do you call it, one after another. But now I have to question, was it worth telling this story non-linearly? Could this story been successful if it was linear? Because I didn't even go upon it as linear. I went upon it because the episodes were very focused on certain aspects, and I wanted people to, to view it as, as that.
Yes.
Because if not, it's very disorienting for when someone starts on red and then is just like, and then has to figure out later, like near the end of their watch, that, oh, that was Hannah, that was in the vault, that's why I care.
Let me ask you this. Obviously you can come up with a preferred order, you have a chronological order. Do you think they really built this show around a non-linear format, or did they make it and then told people to watch it in any order?
Unfortunately, I do think they made it in a non-linear format. I just don't think that they made it well.
Okay,
um,
that's fair.
so-
Let
yeah,
me. Okay,
I,
another
well,
question. Do you think you could do this type of experience with any show?
no, I don't feel like you can do it with any show. I feel like certain stories need to be told in consequential order.
Sure.
Um, just because tension is a thing that I feel like this show, as much as it has surprise, I think there's a famous Alfred Hitchcock quote that talks about surprise and tension, and how if you put a bomb under a table, let's say, but you don't tell the audience, and then the table just goes boom,
Just like that.
and then the table just goes boom, and then and the audience is like shocked, surprised. But then if you tell them that there's a bomb under the table and give them a timer, suddenly the audience is like, when is this table going to blow up? And that creates a tension,
Sure.
you know. um I feel like for this series, the tension was sort of robbed in a lot of places,
I can see that.
because um we know like the fallout, we know like what happens with these characters, and also um but I guess the big tension is, why did Leo do things that were kind of against his character? That was the big tension, because there was a lot of points where Leo was like not acting the way I think he was supposed to act, and that was a big question for me. So when it finally gets revealed in White, oh, he wanted to escape because he already knew he had what do you call it, Parkinson's, so he didn't know how much time he had left. He knew who stole the money, so he was trying to protect them
Trying to
and trying
protect
to
her the
just,
whole time. Yeah.
yeah. And he also knew that, and that's why he didn't go after anybody. And he also knew, and that's why he didn't try to help anybody. But he also knew that Roger would still get his own, like he would still, there were a lot of questions that ended up being answered, which in White, which when you watch the rest of the series, you kind of are left wondering, why would he go so hard to get revenge, and then at the end kind of just be okay with everything that happened, even though it went terribly wrong.
And as you said, it kind of played out in his favor, not exactly how he wanted to go, but if Hannah wins in the end, I think he's okay with that result, and that's essentially what happened.
Yeah.
So the series is listed as a mini series, and we kind of leave off with some ambiguity as far as the ending is concerned. Would you like to see a season 2?
No.
Would you like to see a season 2 that gives you a handful of episodes again and tells you to pick up the pieces?
No. I feel like if there was going to be a season 2, it's going to have to be kind of following in the steps of the limited series and be something completely different, but with
anthology.
the same gimmick. Yeah, like an anthology.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, I feel there's another thing. I feel like, given the clues that were given with Judy's character, because that's the one that's left open.
Correct.
If Judy stays with Stan or leaves, throughout their entire relationship of her and Bob, specifically Bob, you hear Freebird by Lynyrd Skynyrd in the background of a lot of his scenes. And then it becomes, what do you call it? It becomes like, oh, I can't change, yeah. And Bob, that's Bob's character. He's like, I can't change. I have to go and get revenge for what was done to me and win my girl back. Because I think he thinks that Stan is the one who choked him. and crushed his windpipe.
Oh, you think so? Oh, I never thought that he didn't realize.
Yeah, he never realized that who was choking him. He never got a clear picture of them.
Wow.
That's what I think.
I know. I think you're right. I never put that together because he was never like, I want to get Judy too. I was always under the impression he wanted to get Stan because Judy is now with Stan.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Never thought about it like that.
And then there's a scene in Pink that transitions because it brings when Bob is a hothead in like blue and like yellow. He is introduced with the Freebird with Leonard Skinner, and then in Pink it shows up again. And he's like, "Oh, this bird you cannot change," you know that famous part of the song.
Yeah.
But then it shifts to Judy, who's holding Stan, and then Judy goes back, and then it goes to a part of the song where it's like, "If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Because I'm free as a bird," you know, and it just hints to me that she left Stan, that she wanted to like just completely leave, didn't have to split the money with anybody and start anew somewhere else, because I think that's where it leads us to believe, but it kind of leaves it open-ended enough so we can piece it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No. I think there are enough breadcrumbs to kind of pick up where these characters are going. But yeah, if they don't do a season 2, I guess I'm okay. I think I like, anthology idea better than just let's follow up with these characters. I think our time with them, whether or not you consider it well spent, it was spent.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. So I guess let's wrap this up. Do you have any closing thoughts on Netflix's Kaleidoscope for our listeners today?
Yeah, I feel like if they continue with this, the only character that they can continue with is Stan, because they didn't give any breadcrumbs as to where he was headed. They kind of just killed his family and left him eating tacos. So I feel like that's indicative of where the series is headed. No season 2. No one wants rip off Jack Quaid to lead the series.
Don't do him like that. But you are a fan of if they went anthology route, new cast, new crime.
Yeah, I'm a fan. New cast, new crime. I just worry if how repetitive it will be.
Very true. Very true. I think, as much as we talked about, I think the idea is really cool. I think discussing with people a series where everybody is essentially starting at different points is really fun, in theory. And I say in theory, depending on the actual execution of the show. Was Kaleidoscope executed perfectly? I think we can both agree. Absolutely not. No. Are there strong performances? Yes. I think Giancarlo.
Yeah.
I think he does.
Giancarlo, Ava.
Paz Vega. Even Roger. Rufus Sewell. I think he does a pretty good job. Tati Gabrielle. Were there some weak performances and underdeveloped characters and storylines? Plentiful.
Was there Jack Courtney?
I don't even know if I like Jack Courtney, because now that you say that he's just playing Jack Courtney, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like that.
I mean, he worked for what he worked. He worked, but he was there. Jack Courtney was there.
He was there. I mean, we might as well give a shout out to the whole cast. Oh gosh, you got Judy, played by Rosaline Elbay. Peter Mark Kendall as Stan, Jordan Mendoza as RJ, Nuusha Noor as Abasi, and we'll stop right there. I think all the ones worth mentioning. Yeah, I mean, it's not like, again, other than I'd say her knocking the stuff off the desk, performances were fine. But yeah, I think they have a cool concept here that I think maybe if they try it one more time, they could have something
And maybe not centered around something as tropey as a heist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like nonlinear stories can work. They could even work with a heist, but to make a heist story, only specifically a heist story, be so revolved around nonlinear storytelling, kind of ruins some of the tension that heist stories naturally have.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, talking thematically here, Kaleidoscope, you can aim it at anything and it changes your perspective. So I think if they were to make an anthology base, point the Kaleidoscope at something new, something else, and be able to tell the story from 8 different angles and just kind of have fun with it. But yeah, it doesn't
that would be
have to be
interesting.
yeah, it doesn't have to be a heist. You have a instigating incident, but it doesn't have to be a heist. I think this idea can work with anything. So I'd like to see them try it again. Give us some strong leads again. Giancarlo, I'm glad this was I wish it was better, but he did good.
He did good. He did good. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I would like to see it again. So I know it's it's like #1 right now on Netflix. It might have dropped to #2, but it is doing well. People are watching. I believe Netflix goes off of numbers over ratings more than anything. So maybe we'll see a greenlit season 2. Who knows? Actually, I'm also gonna go and try to rewatch some shows non-linearly and just see.
That's gonna.
I know I really like your table and bomb analogy, but I'm just gonna see. I don't know if that changes things.
It might. It might.
It might, or maybe I should just try a show I've never watched before entirely, and just go non-linearly. Just to see if it works, just to see if Netflix is on to something huge here. But folks, that is our take on Netflix's newest hit show, Kaleidoscope. Currently on Netflix, you can go watch it now. And again, if you like to, watch it randomized as we did, by all means, Nino's preferred order. I'll shout it out again. Episode green, violet, yellow, orange, blue, red, pink, white. That is Nino's preferred order. Let us know in the comments your journey. Let us know how y'all took this show. Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun? Did you like the non-linear style? What did you think of the characters? All that jazz. You can talk to us in the comments of any of our social media, or you can join the link below and join the Discord. We're talking there all the time. So we'll love to hear from you. But yeah, we're on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Dr. Jace is on Twitch, so go watch him play some stuff. If you ever like to hear from Nino, he's definitely in the Discord. So go ahead and hit it up. And then thank you for listening on your various podcast stations: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you're listening to us. And hey, we appreciate y'all. Episode 2 of Voyage 3, season 3 of the Yonko Table. Without further ado, we are signing off. That is Supernova Nino Desposado and your host, Grandmaster Who. Kaleidoscope didn't leave me with any cool songs. I guess we could sing Free Bird. I don't know, but Free Bird. All right, y'all take care.